Welcome to Class 21, entitled Getting Things Done. It may seem strange to devote a whole lecture to the idea of, quote, getting things done, but actually this is a very important topic. Every day things are moving faster and we're getting more information coming through our lives. So the trick in the practice of law, as in any other business, is to keep up with all of the information flow and to do things as quickly and as efficiently as possible. So when we talk about getting things done, what we're really talking about is getting things done in the fastest, most efficient, optimal way that we can. As we said earlier, the practice of law is basically an information processing business. And that being the case, it means that we obviously want to find a way to manage our information intelligently. So what kind of information do lawyers have to manage? Well, pretty much like everybody else, we have to keep track of emails, we have to keep track of documents that come into our office or the documents that our clients give us, and we have to keep track of appointments and calendar events. So up to now we've pretty much been talking about managing the case files using CaseMap. But what we're going to talk about now is managing our office practice, which is the emails that we get, the contacts that we have to manage, the phone numbers of people that we call, and also the calendar appointments that we have to take care of. As we do this, we're going to want to consider two basic principles. First, we want to look for things that we can automate, and secondly, we want to look for things that we can batch process, which means basically do the same task over and over again. These two principles are basically what Henry Ford used when he created the assembly line and revolutionized the way that automobiles were manufactured. We need to do the same thing in the information processing age. If Henry Ford were alive today, he would no doubt be an advocate of David Allen's book called Getting Things Done. David Allen has advised many corporate executives on how to improve their information handling using some basic techniques. The first step is to collect all of the information that you need to manage. And this is what happens when you ask your client to give you relevant case documents. The second step is to process that information, which is what we talked about doing with CaseMap. The third step is to organize the information, which again is what we did in CaseMap. And last, to review the information and then do something with it. While it may seem like these 5 steps are pretty basic, it's important to examine each one and figure out where you are in the process. You can't organize information if you haven't collected it all. So the collection step is very important. The processing step is important too, but each of these steps have to occur in a certain order. And that's the important thing, is to understand that these things have to happen in a specific order. And we must remember what the goal is. The goal of this process is to save time wherever possible, to automate and capture key information, and finally to leverage that information so that we can do more with it. In later classes we're going to talk about using email, but for now let's talk about information gathering on the internet. Increasingly the information that we are asked to collect is going to be coming to us either from the internet or through the internet. And that means that we're going to have to improve our skills in collecting information that comes to us from the internet. In the old days, if lawyers wanted to keep up with the latest information, they would subscribe to newsletters or check the slip opinions and so forth. Today, obviously, the internet is the place to keep up with information. So what kind of information can a lawyer gather from the internet? The answer is pretty much anything. And I suggest that one place that lawyers should pay attention to is the area of weblogs. There are many weblogs devoted to topics of interest to lawyers. And to highlight just a few, we'll cover one or two of those here. One of them is called JD Hacker, and this is a great site which talks about how to do things more efficiently and has a lot of different blog posts on how to use your cell phone in efficient ways, how to remotely access files. This is a great site. If you want to find it, just Google the term JD Hacker and you'll be able to find it pretty quickly. Another great weblog is Evan Schaefer's Illinois Trial Practice blog. Evan Schaefer is a trial attorney in a rural part of Illinois, and he talks about how to take depositions, how to examine expert witnesses, and so forth. A lot of good strategy tips on this weblog. And lastly, Ray Ward is an attorney here in New Orleans who writes about how to draft briefs and so forth. He's an appellate specialist, so his weblog is devoted to things related to legal writing. Now, it's all well and good to visit these sites individually, but what we would like to do is automate this process of gathering information from these sites. So what are we going to do? We need to do something different than loading up each one of these pages individually. It takes too much time. And the solution is to use something called the Google Reader. This is a free tool that Google makes available that allows you to pull information from various websites into one place that you can read. So here we are in my Gmail account. I'm going to click on the Reader button up at the top, and then this is going to pull up my Google Reader, which gathers all of the different weblogs and websites that I want to read. And this way, instead of having to go to each one individually, I can pull them all into one place. I strip out all of the advertising and additional information, the marginalia that I don't care about, and now I can just go from post to post and look for things that are relevant to my practice or that interest me. This is the efficient way to gather information. This is automating your web browsing experience. And all you have to do in order to do this is to sign up for the free Gmail account and then go to the Reader and then start the process of importing various weblogs and sites that you're interested in reading inside of your Google Reader. So now let's take a look at how to add new feeds to Google Reader. You go up to the navigation bar, choose Add a Subscription, type in the name of the person or the name of the website. Here I'm typing in Ray Ward, and it pulls up his two websites. One is called Minor Wisdom. I could subscribe to that. I'm already subscribed to the new Legal Reader, which is the one I was telling you about earlier. So here I would just click on that button. It would say subscribed. Then I can go back to the feed entry form, click on Return to Feed Discovery. Then I type in, let's say we're going to look for the JD Hacker site. We type in JD Hacker. I hit Return or click on Search for Feeds. And here we see I've already subscribed to JD Hacker, so I don't need to add that one to my feeds. Click on Return to Feed Discovery, and now let's look for the Illinois Trial Practice weblog. So I type in Illinois Trial Practice weblog, hit Return or click on Search for Feeds, and it pulls it up. So here I would subscribe by clicking on the Subscribe button. After I do that, I've given the choice to add it to a particular folder, and I have subfolders for all of the different feeds. This one is going to be added to law. So that's it. That's all it takes. Now in future classes, we're going to talk about how to be efficient with things like email, with phone calls, faxes, voicemail, and so forth. But the main thing to remember for now is that all of these tools we're going to use some sort of web strategy. We're going to automate things, and we're going to figure out how to funnel them through the web to one place where we can look at them in one place and see everything, rather than having to go look for our voicemail messages in one place, or faxes in another, and emails in another place. We want to bring them all to one place and consolidate them. Okay, so to recap, we want to focus on automation and also batch processing. Batch processing meaning doing similar tasks together rather than jumping from different types of tasks to different types of tasks. And lastly, we want to remember the getting things done principles. And if you think about this in terms of how you would write a legal memo, you don't just sit down and start writing the memo. You first go gather all the cases and do the research. Then you read the cases closely to figure out which ones are relevant and which issues they pertain to. That's part of processing and organizing. Then you review all this information, decide how you're going to set it up. Maybe you create an outline, and lastly you sit down and write. So there's a process that you go through as you create your work product, and this process is not some haphazard thing, but rather has a series of very specific steps. So that's it for class 21. I look forward to seeing you in class 22, where we'll talk about managing email.